In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a handful of the most popular utility knives for everyday carry and comparing their specs and features and putting them through a handful of torture tests to see how well they hold up. So if you're in the market for a pocket carry friendly utility knife, this video will show you a few different options and help you decide which one is best for you. For the sake of consistency and fair test results, I've loaded all of these utility knives up with DeWalt Carbide Edge utility blades. And these are my go-to for utility blades because they're extremely durable, they've got great edge retention, and they will last quite a bit longer than most blades, and they're reasonably priced for the quality. We're going to start off with a quick overview of each utility knife, and here we have a very compact and durable design, which is the TPT Slide from Big Idea Design. And it's made from grade 5 titanium, and this version has a matte black finish, but you can also pick one up in a stone-washed titanium as well. It's got a handful of other useful tools built right in, including a mini pry bar and a flathead screwdriver, a hex bit driver, a bottle opener, and there's a pocket clip on the back as well. You can deploy the blade with one hand easily with the slide lever, and the action is super smooth, and the slide has some jimping, which helps to improve the grip. Cutting cardboard is silky smooth, and even though it's small, it's still comfortable to grip. This is the Gerber PRYBRID, and it's a pry bar utility knife combo. And if you plan on doing some prying and cutting, this is one of the best options to consider. It has G10 scales, and this is the gray version, but you can also pick it up in green. And this is definitely the heftiest utility knife in the lineup. It has a cord cutter notch on the side, and a nice big pry bar nail puller combo on the end, and a bottle opener as well. The PRYBRID's utility blade is easy to deploy and has a slide lock mechanism, and it locks very securely into place when extended. The width makes it very easy to grip, and if you're planning to do some heavy-duty work, this is a great option. The cutting experience is very smooth, and it cuts through the cardboard like butter, and it's very easy to control. This is the Exceed Designs Tyrant Razor, and it's a flipper-style utility knife, perfect for those looking for a high-end EDC option. These scales are made from stone-washed titanium, and it feels quite a bit more like a pocket knife compared to the rest of the blades we've seen, and it also has a removable pocket clip. The blade can be deployed by pressing your index finger on the flipper, and it's held in place with a frame lock. Again, we're dealing with a relatively large handle, which is definitely advantageous if you're planning any heavy-duty use. And this is a great option to consider if you want something that looks great and will last you for many years. It's not as comfortable to cut with as the PRYBRID, but it's still much better than many of the retracting designs that we'll see coming up. This is the GIL-TEK RUK-S, and this is one of the lightest utility knives in the lineup. It has a solid one-piece design with a pry bar on the end, and this is the black version made from aluminum alloy, but you can also pick it up in brass, and there's designs for right and left-handed users. The blade can be deployed with one hand by pressing down on the blade and then sliding up. There's some jimping on the spine and a groove for your index finger by the edge of the blade, and this is definitely one of the more comfortable smaller knives. Cutting cardboard is very smooth, and the ergonomics are impressive for its size. This is the side slip from Aerocrafted, and if you're looking for an ultralight minimal utility knife, this would be the best option to consider. The frame is made from a single piece of grade 5 titanium, and the slider is made from low friction bronze. There aren't a whole lot of bells and whistles, but it does have a pocket clip, and it can be purchased in a right or left-handed version. The blade can be deployed with one hand by pressing on the slider with the thumb, and then it locks in place. The side slip feels okay in the hands and would benefit from a bit of jimping, but it would be acceptable for light duty use, and is definitely the best option for those looking for a minimal titanium option. Cutting cardboard is no problem for the side slip, but it's definitely much narrower than the other blades here, so you do sacrifice some comfort and control with this extremely compact minimal design. Next up, we have a folder style utility knife from WORKPRO, and it comes in a pack of 3, and this is the most budget friendly option in the lineup. It's made from stainless steel, and it doesn't have any multi-tool capabilities, but it does have a pocket clip. You do need 2 hands to open this blade, and it's held in place by a liner lock. The length helps make it much more comfortable to hold and would be better suited for harder use compared to a lot of the other blades in the lineup. The WORKPRO handles the cardboard with ease and definitely feels good in the hand, and it's easy to control the blade. Next up, we have another folding style knife from Coast, which is the DX126. This knife is actually pretty good looking, which is a nice unexpected surprise, and there aren't a whole lot of extra features, but the handle is made from nylon and it has a gripping texture, and there's also a removable pocket clip and a lanyard hole. You can deploy the blade with 2 hands, and it's held in place with a liner lock, and there's an additional lock on the spine for some added peace of mind. There's some jimping on the spine, and overall the ergonomics are pretty solid and much better than the WORKPRO knife, and there's a nice place for your index finger close to the blade, and it's a good option to consider if you want something black for your everyday carry. This is another one that feels great to cut with, and the wide jimping makes the index finger rest one of the most comfortable and controlled in the lineup. This is the Outdoor Edge Sidewinder, and it's a relatively compact utility knife with a handle that's bright orange, which is great for visibility, and made from a combination of nylon polymer and stainless steel. There's a removable pocket clip, a bottle opener, a flathead driver, and a Phillips head as well. You can deploy the blade by pressing the small orange button and sliding out the blade, which locks securely in place. It's also got some jimping on the spine and some well-designed finger grooves, which makes it relatively comfortable to hold considering its size, and it definitely feels more robust than the GIL-TEK RUK-S. This one is a bit awkward to cut with at this angle since its spine is slightly raised at the end and designed to be engaged with the thumb, but overall it holds up well to the task. This is the Screwpop Bronze Utility Knife 3.0, and this is another ultralight minimal design. It's made from stainless steel, and it has a bottle opener on one end and a brass eyelet which you can use to attach it to a carabiner or a keychain. You can deploy the blade with two hands by lifting the lock lever, sliding the blade back in place, and then closing it back in place. It's definitely a very narrow design, best intended for light duty use, and there isn't that much grip, but it is a bit longer than the Aerocrafted knife. It's a bit more difficult to control with the index finger than many of the other utility knives due to its narrow profile, but it's able to handle cardboard cutting easily. Last but not least, we have the EAB from Gerber, and this is another folder with a really solid and simple design. The body is made from stainless steel, and there's a nice wide pocket clip. And this is the only utility knife that requires a tool to change the blade, but it's really simple and you just need a flathead. The blade can be opened with two hands and it's kept in place by a liner lock. This is another longer knife, which makes it more comfortable to grip. The spine is smooth and there's a groove for your index finger. Overall, the build quality feels great and it's much more solid than the WORKPRO knife, and it's definitely one of the most durable blades in the lineup. Cutting cardboard is very easy, and this is definitely one of the most comfortable and solid feeling knives to work with. Here's a quick look at how they all compare in length and weights, which is important to keep in mind if you plan on pocket carrying one of these utility knives. They are ordered from tallest to shortest, with blades retracted starting on the left, and the Gerber PRYBRID is the longest at about 4.25 inches, and the Aerocrafted side slip is the shortest at about 2.7 inches. When it comes to weight, the side slip is the most lightweight by a long shot at 12.7 grams or 0.45 ounces, followed closely behind by the GIL-TEK RUK-S. The Tyrant Razor and the Gerber PRYBRID are considerably heavier, and the PRYBRID weighs 91.1 grams or about 3.2 ounces. We've seen how easy it is for these utility knives to cut through cardboard, so now I'm going to put them through a few different tests to help show how durable they are and what levels of hard use they can handle. I've driven some staples into a piece of redwood, and we're going to see how these utility knives handle the relatively difficult task of removing them. We're starting off with the Gerber PRYBRID, and it's doing a good job of removing the staples. The blade definitely flexes a bit, but overall it's able to handle the task very easily. Next up we have the EAB, and it's able to get under the staples with ease, but there's considerably more sideways flex in the blade, and I wouldn't feel too comfortable putting it under too much more pressure. This is the RUK-S, and there's more in and out play with this blade, and in my test the lock disengaged and the blade slid back into place, but in the end I was able to get some of the staples out. The Tyrant Razor surprisingly had minimal blade flex, and it did an excellent job of removing the staples, and the blade had very little play and felt very stable during the process. Next up we have the TPT Slide, and it's able to handle a decent amount of pressure, but the blade locking mechanism did come loose, but it still was able to get up underneath the staples. Here's the Screwpop V3, and this one actually held up to the test pretty well, and there's very little play in the blade. There was also minimal flex, and it actually did a better job than many of the larger utility knives, which I was surprised to see. Here we have the WORKPRO, and the blade does wiggle a bit, and it flexes a bit more than I would like to see, but it does do a decent job of getting underneath the staples and popping them out. Next up is the Coast, and this one has a great blade locking mechanism, and there's virtually no back and forth wiggle. Again, we are seeing the blade flex, but it still holds up to the task really well and feels great for performing this job. Up next is the Sidewinder, and there's a bit of wiggle with the blade, but it's very controlled and there's minimal flex in the blade, and it's able to do a surprisingly good job of getting underneath these staples and popping them out. Last but not least, we have the Aerocrafted side slip, and it's a bit tougher to grip due to its small size, and there's a bit of back and forth play here, but very minimal side to side flexing of the blade, and surprisingly it was able to handle many of these staples with ease. Now I'm going to put these knives through a bit more stress to see how sturdy their locking mechanisms are by seeing how they handle being smashed against a piece of wood on the tip of their blade. We're going to start off with the Gerber PRYBRID and smash it a few times, and overall it seems to hold up quite well and the blade is still securely in place. Next up we have the Big Idea Design TPT Slide, and this blade is much smaller, so it's tougher to get a good grip on, and I did have some mixed results with this test. Sometimes the blade stayed in place and other times it slipped with similar amounts of force applied, so it's definitely one to be careful with. Regardless, the locking mechanism still functions after the test, so no permanent damage was done. Here we have the Gerber EAB, and this one is quite solid and easy to get a nice firm grip on, and it held up to the test with no issues. Next up we have the Exceed Designs Tyrant Razor, and this is another one that's easy to get a firm grasp on, and it also held up really well. Up next is the GIL-TEK RUK-S, and even though it's not a folder, you can still get a great grip on it, and it was able to hold up really well. Now we have the Aerocrafted Side Slip, and this one is considerably tougher to grasp due to its extremely small and slim profile, and this is another one that had mixed results, and sometimes the blade would retract and sometimes it wouldn't, with similar force applied. So this is another one you definitely want to treat more gently, but no damage was done to the locking mechanism. Next up we have the WORKPRO, and this one is easy to grasp and it's able to handle the test with ease. Here we have the Coast DX126, and this one is another one with a great grip, and again it takes no issues whatsoever with this kind of abuse. The Outdoor Edge Sidewinder is another one that's a bit tougher to grip due to the small size, but it does hold up well to this test and has no issues. Last in line is the Screwpop 3.0, and this is another one that's a bit more difficult to grip, but it also holds up well. We're going to finish off with an impact test so you can get an idea for how well they held up to being dropped or thrown, and I'm going to stand about 15 feet away from a cinder block wall and give them all a good chuck, and we'll take a look and see how they hold up. Alright, so first up we have the WORKPRO, and it looks like it actually opened up from the impact, but it did hold up just fine, and I'm able to open and close it with no problem. The Exceed Designs Tyrant Razor seems to have held up okay, and I'm able to open and close it. There's a nice bit of discoloration on the corner, but it should come out just fine. The Screwpop does not appear to have any damage, and the lock is working well, and it's able to open and close very smoothly like new. The Coast DX126 also came partially open during the impact, but it's also opening and locking, and the blade still feels secure and it's still closing as it should. The Gerber EAB stayed closed, and it looks like it barely took a scratch, and it opens, locks, and closes just fine. The Aerocrafted Side Slip opens, locks, and closes smoothly, and definitely has no issues from the impact. Next up we have the TPT Slide, and it looks a little bit more banged up than it did before, but it's still operating as it should. The Outdoor Edge Sidewinder looks as good as new, and it's working well with no noticeable issues. The GIL-TEK RUK-S picked up a small ding, but overall it's in good shape and operating as normal. Finally, we have the Gerber PRYBRID, and I was a bit more concerned about this one because it's considerably heavier than the rest of the blades, and it did get a little scratched up, but it's working just as it should. Thanks so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It would be great to know what EDC utility knife is your favorite in the comments, and if you want to pick one up and help support the channel, you can find a link in the description below. I'm also planning to compare some larger folding utility knives and some retractable folding knives in the next few weeks, so be sure to smash the like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.